Well, welcome to Mr. Bogama's Tnready U.S. History Must-Knows. Today we're talking about Standard 12, trusts, monopolies, and antitrust. So antitrust comes about at the turn of the 19th century as a result of decades of laissez-faire Gilded Age economic policies that allowed for the industrialization of the United States and the rise of big businesses. These big businesses start to form into trusts and monopolies. So a trust is when investors buy control of many businesses within an industry. So the example that we have here is J.P. Morgan's Northern Securities Trust. And that was a ownership of a collection of railroads that gave access to the Pacific Northwest to J.P. Morgan. The other example of big business's power during the Gilded Age was monopolies. Monopolies such as Standard Oil, owned by John D. Rockefeller, bought up and controlled industries through one corporation, such as Standard Oil. Now, by 1900, 75% of the economy was controlled by trusts and monopolies. And Americans were beginning to fear their control over prices. And President Theodore Roosevelt is going to feel that these monopolies are damaging the American consumer. So that's when Theodore Roosevelt promises his square deal. And he wants all Americans to be treated equally, have an equal shot at success. And that's not really possible with these large businesses and monopolies and trusts. So he's going to use the Sherman Antitrust Act that was passed in 1890. He's going to start using it once he becomes president in 1901 to break up these large trusts. So the Sherman Antitrust Act states that it's illegal to conspire to control or to restrain trade within the United States or with foreign countries. So he's going to use the Sherman Antitrust Act to break up the Northern Securities Trust owned by J.P. Morgan. So he's going to go to battle with these railroad trusts. And here's Theodore Roosevelt as the police commissioner. He formerly, prior to being president, he was the police commissioner in New York City. Here he is depicted as the commissioner once again going after these railroad trusts, these crooked thieves. And then he's going to use the Sherman Antitrust Act against Standard Oil. So here's Theodore Roosevelt wrestling with the serpent of Standard Oil, when Standard Oil will eventually be broken up in 1911 with a Supreme Court ruling. So Theodore Roosevelt becomes the trust buster, trust busting president, a very active president who uses the executive branch and what he feels is best for the American people through his square deal concepts. Let's look at our test questions. The following cartoon appeared in the magazine Puck in 1889. It's called The Bosses of the Senate. We have a bunch of trusts inside the Capitol looking down on the Senate. So this is depicting their power over government during the Gilded Age. So what does this cartoon imply about U.S. economic policy prior to 1890? Prior to 1890, so that's before the Sherman Antitrust Act, the federal government passed laws that favored large corporations. That is Gilded Age policy, laissez-faire economics. During the late 1800s, which action did Congress take to regulate the business practices of companies such as Standard Oil and Carnegie Steel? Well, this is the past. You see that antitrust right there in our for B. Standard Oil and Carnegie Steel were large, powerful monopolies. So the passage of the Sherman Antitrust Act to regulate these companies. In 1888, Ohio Senator John Sherman introduced an antitrust bill in Congress. The following excerpt is from a speech he delivered on the floor of the Senate. The popular mind is agitated with problems that may disturb social order. None is more threatening than the concentration of capital into vast combinations. He's talking about those combinations he's talking about are trusts and monopolies. Congress alone can deal with them, and if we are unwilling or unable, there will soon be a trust for every product and a master to fix the price for every necessity of life. So that's going to hurt the consumer if prices are being fixed and there's only one option for consumers. And these trusts, if they're buying up all these corporations and controlling various industries, then the American consumer is going to be hurt. There won't be competition. What is Sherman's analysis of the impact of trusts on the capitalist economy? He's talking about Congress dealing with it in the passage. So he suggested that the government was needed to balance the power of concentrated wealth.